Hi, I'm Jennifer Woodruff.
Hello, my name is Vijaya Kuppa.
My name is Santa.
And I'm Eugenia Blackman.
The Brown Parent Report is an online public and private school review site for parents of Brown children. Set to publicly launch in 2019, we are excited to host the Racial Intelligence Research Initiative as a pilot program aimed to forge partnerships with independent schools in the New York City metro area. The Racial Intelligence Research Initiative offers independent schools the opportunity to listen for ways to thoughtfully initiate or enhance their diversity and inclusion strategy. Essentially, the initiative invites families to anonymously share their insights and experiences with their school's culture from a diversity and inclusion perspective.
In terms of kids learning about race in school, I think it's probably the best place for them to learn. I think when kids come to school, they don't have their parents over them. So some of the biases the parents may have, the kids are kind of separated from. And also, I think, when kids are in school and they're kind of like making their own relationships with their friends, they're forming those relationships based on what's meaningful to them, for their age. So they're not really looking at, is that person Indian or is that person something else or something else? They're just looking at, do I get along with this person or are they fun to be with?
Well, I think that the fact that you're asking me in 2018 why conversations around race need to happen in schools across America sort of answers the question. The fact that I'm sitting here in 2018 and having a discussion about this really signifies why we need to have this conversation. There is obviously a lot going on from a social issue standpoint, and what a better place for our kids to have discussions around race than in an environment where they feel comfortable, where they feel secure, where the conversation can be done in a constructive way, and where people can basically come in and express their different points of view. And to me, that is what an educational institution it's about. To me, it's a big blind spot for schools not to engage at an early age in conversations around race.
I've seen in my work with kids and families that racism is still a big problem in American society, and that's what brought me to engage in conversations with people and to look a little more closely. But I think for many white families, it's easy to see markers of progress, and it's easy to focus on those markers of progress, and so white families don't always engage in conversations unless something happens pretty directly to them. And there aren't a lot of places for conversations about race to come up for white families who aren't talking about it. So I think that's why it's really important for schools and school leaders and teachers to raise the issues and help people see why it's important and how to talk about it.
What I love about the initiative is that it offers insights from both white and brown families. While therapeutic for brown families, the Brown Parent Report will not move the needle unless we have white families, faculty, and administrators listening and thoughtfully responding.
So I'm from India. I was born there and I lived there until I was about in second grade, and then we moved here. When I moved here, obviously when you're in India, everybody's Indian, so we really saw no differences. But it was once I came here and now I'm living in the city, and that's when I saw people were treating each other differently. And I had to kind of learn that if I wanted to get along with my friends in school, I had to say certain things which may not be true, but it's just things I had to say because I felt like if I said it, then I'd be accepted more. So for example, if I was in school, I would say, oh, I don't like Indian movies. Oh, I don't like Indian food. Oh, no, I don't wear Indian clothes. But then when I came home, it was a different personality because now I'm home. So it's I think it's unfortunate that that's happened because for a long time, until probably I was in high school or even past, probably in 10th or 11th grade, I didn't really fully understand what it is that I was doing. And, when I look back from I think second grade until 10th grade, all that time, it's really valuable for kids. That's when you learn things and that's when you're comfortable learning things. And I kind of missed out on that because I felt somewhat ashamed of who it is that I was. And it wasn't until I got to a certain point where I was more vocal and I can understand things that I realized what was happening. And it's kind of annoying too because there's definitely a lot of resentment as I grow up. It's when I look back, I'm thinking oh, well, look at my kids. I'm teaching them to be just who they are or whatever. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, wow, that's kind of like a double standard because I wasn't like that.
And I remember one day driving to school with my son, and he made a comment to me. He said, "Mom, my friend Shanti, she has the same skin color as I do." And I remember looking through the mirror, and he has such a big smile on his face that, to me, that really set. It was one of the things that I put on my mind in terms of where do I want my son to be? Like, where do I think my son will probably be the most comfortable in, and what type of environment? And I knew that he will probably be the most comfortable in an environment where he saw other kids as well, that he can share, that he had friends who look like him. So for me, like, as I went through this process in terms of visiting the schools, those were some of the things that we were looking at as well, right? So is those visual cues, right? In terms of how diverse are the classrooms. I remember visiting one school that had a digital board celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, and I am Afro-Caribbean, so to me that really stood out. It was very minor detail, but to me that said that the school was welcoming to, from a diversity standpoint.
I was a middle school principal for a few years of a racially integrated school. And one time, a group of 8th grade kids had collected food for the local shelters and churches. And I took 3 African American boys over to the church one day to drop off food. It was within walking distance of the school. These were great kids. They were smart, funny, fun-loving, children of professionals, and they were working on a social justice project. We arrived at the church and the church door was closed, but the parish door was open and unlocked. So I told them to come into the parish house and drop the food off. They were really nervous about walking in without an invitation. But they did. They walked in, put the food down on the counter, and we all left a note saying who it was from. As we turned to leave and walk through the door, the boys heard a siren and they instantly and immediately began to run. And when I caught up with them, I asked them why they had started running because it was a car alarm. And they told me that they thought that they were going to be in trouble. They thought that the police were coming after them. And I was given pause because I don't think white boys would have done that. I think what we saw was the effect of internalized racism at a very young age. They were 13 years old. I think if your eyes aren't open to it, you don't see that. But once your eyes are open to it, you see it everywhere.
In terms of independent schools, I think, quite honestly, it's like such a wasted opportunity if they don't implement something like this. Because people are paying for their kids to be in these schools, so you're not bound by the same kind of curriculum restrictions that public schools have. There's certainly more time for you to probably personalize the curriculum. And I think that's what a lot of independent schools even like advertise. Oh, we're able to teach them certain things because we have that flexibility in our schedule. So I think it's kids spend the most time in school. They spend the most time away from their parents in a safe environment. We obviously trust our teachers to teach our kids the best. So I kind of feel like if independent schools were able to implement something like this into their curriculum, then that's one more thing that'll set them apart. And that's one more thing that maybe parents will want to consider as, they're deciding whether to send their kids to a private school or a public school.
And I guess one of the things that I think that I will hope for, conversations around race, it's not a conversation to be had just amongst ourselves. I think it needs for us to sort of like break through barriers, it has to be a conversation among all parents, regardless of whether you're a parent of color or not. So hopefully, white parents can embrace, discussions around race, because I think we are all going to benefit as a society. It cannot be a discussion for us to have in silos.
My hope for schools is that they will engage white families in understanding the problem of racism and how it affects all children, but more specifically how it affects white families and white children in inadvertently and unintentionally continuing to participate in a racist society and perpetuate it. And what schools can do is help white families understand the need for curriculum that looks at the situation through that lens, give families the tools for talking about it at home, because white families don't know how to talk about race at home, and they think that not talking about it is the best thing to do. White families are coming at it with best intentions. They just don't have the tools. And schools can understand their unique role as the place where that should happen, because there aren't any other places that I can see for white families to get that information.
As such, I hope schools will take advantage of the opportunity to not only hear from families of color, but to also meaningfully engage white families from their perspectives as well. How amazing would it be if in 10 to 20 years, the Brown Parent Report is no longer a necessary space for brown families? While we are a long way from there, I do believe that programs like the Racial Intelligence Research Initiative and platforms like the Brown Parent Report are firm steps in the right direction.